Hey, this is Brendan from Wheatus, and you're listening to the Midwest Mixtape Podcast.
'Cause I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Yeah, I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby. Will you
Hi, and welcome to the Midwest Mixtape Podcast, live from the Barn Studio. You got the Mox here, and I'm joined online right now with Brendan from Wheatus. Brendan, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing really good. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited you're coming into town with Bowling for Soup on September 6th at the pageant in St. Louis. We're excited to have you back in town.
Yeah, man. Really stoked. Thanks for having us. It's, we've been trying to tour with Soup forever and ever, and just now it's finally coming together. We did it one time back in the UK in 2007, but we've been trying to ever since and never got the timing right, but now it's rocking.
That pairing makes a lot of sense to me, and I imagine it does to you guys too. Is it the same audiences that you're seeing?
Very much so. Makes sense to me as well. I'd say it's like a bit of a crossover because we have a little bit more indie kids and they have a little bit more of the punk rock kids, and it's like we get together and, families come out of it.
You've been a professional musician, touring musician for a number of years, right? How have you seen that landscape change? Is it, we talk a lot about the streaming and how it's not record sales anymore. It's this and that, and how money is generated is kind of different. The live show is imperative now as it was then, but it's in a different kind of place now than it was maybe when you guys started.
I would say that it's everything, and I'd say that it's improved for the better since we started. There's a lot less of that sort of genre hype, people are into everything, it doesn't matter what clique you roll with, you can go see anybody, right? And that wasn't the case back in the day. There was a lot more sort of tribalism, but now everybody just rolls, and it's really fun. And the kind of touring we've been doing, i.e. never off the road, kind of gives you a chance to get to a place with your show where the crowd is part of it, right? They're like, they show up not because they're like passive participants, but because they're there to like go on the ride, and for us, that's definitely been very new for the last like 10 years, like developing like this totally dynamic, evolving relationship with the audience, because we just keep coming out and touring. And they've changed us. We do things so differently now. We don't roll with a set list. We just let the crowd call it, I think for Soup, we're going to try and narrow it down so we keep the show nice and tight. But basically, it's just, Jared, I think, told me he does the same thing. They know what the first song is and the last song, and everything else they don't even talk about. So the crowd gets the show that the crowd wants that night, And the other thing is like, you don't know if the crowd is kind of sleepy or if they're up for it, if they want to rock real hard. They have a right. They spent their money. They have the right to the kind of show that they need that night, right? So, who am I to impose something on them, So it's like, let them tell you how to play is basically the new way.
All the experience that you've had on stage, are you able to tell right away kind of what the crowd is going to be like? Right? Because I imagine the day of the week matters too. Sometimes those Friday night crowds, when they've been at work all week and they just want to let loose, or Saturday might be different from a Monday or a Tuesday.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And when we that's what I said, when we come up, I don't know what kind of a show we're going to have until we start playing that first song, and the crowd tells us what we're doing. And, if we don't take our direction from them, if we try to like force something that we've quote unquote rehearsed, that's not as cool. It's never as cool. It doesn't have a vibe. It's a give and take, and we take the first cue from them, You
always kind of hear about those stories about Kiss starting right at 9:00 and they are to the minute done with their set, and everything is just scheduled, and it's, I don't know, maybe more show than anything else. Is that a world that you could ever live in, or is part of the fun for you the spontaneity of it, the excitement of it, of not knowing?
I exist because of that spontaneity. I could never do something so formatted and structured. we take the music really seriously, so we rehearse our asses off, right? We're constantly rehearsing, 5 days a week, kind of 8 hours a day kind of thing, just going to work on it, making sure that we're tightening up the bolts all the time so that we can have fun with it later, right? So that we can be flexible with it later and not get caught up on something we didn't work on. So the serious part for me is the work we do at home and doing this, working on the sounds and working on how we do things properly. And then once we're on stage, man, that's the audience's time. We're just there to deliver whatever they need. So the idea that we would kind of come up and be like, oh, this is exactly what we planned and you're going to sit through it whether you like it or not, I'll never be able to do that. I'll never.
I'm a sports and music guy, so I sometimes compare those two worlds. And you sort of, I think maybe, well, it wasn't the Allen Iverson practice thing, but I think somebody said that some professional athletes said, they pay me to practice. Oops. I would do the games for free. Is that sort of the same thing for you as far as like the live shows?
A bit. Is that the Ultimate Warrior you just knocked over there?
I know, dude. He would totally hammer me, right? This is my comfort. It's like my spirit animal, I guess, or something.
Yeah, he was my favorite back in the day, man. He was like he was the ultimate. But I mean, yeah, I mean, like you baseball, right? No one knows what's going to happen in baseball. It doesn't matter what the stats have been up until that day. That day is that day only, right? And what's the saying? Anything can happen in baseball. I think that feels right for shows. I think that should be how shows go, on the positive side, like you can get something you didn't expect and you were overjoyed by. And that's the fire you got to keep lit, I think.
I have 3 daughters, none of them over the age of 14. And they sometimes aren't aware of who I'm interviewing, right? Because it might be somebody that had some success back in the day before they were even born.
Right.
So they asked me this morning before school, Daddy, who are you interviewing today? And I said, have you ever heard the song Teenage Dirtbag? Well, unbeknownst to me, I guess TikTok kind of brought it around for everybody. All 3 of my daughters, again, from 14 to 9, knew your song. Is that that kind of revitalization of something that's a few decades old at this point? Has that been kind of important to your career?
Oh man, it's the bridge to continue doing it. I mean, I can't pretend to understand why or how that happens, but I'll tell you what, I feel like the luckiest idiot who ever came out of Long Island. Like I can't explain how fortunate we are for that. It's just beyond words. I mean, I saw Quincy Jones do one of those videos. Madonna did one, Cheech and Chong did one, Chevy Chase did one. I was like, how do these people, what are they doing? They don't know us. Like, this is crazy. What, are you crazy? So, it just feels nuts to me that's a real thing. And my duty is to keep that song fresh, keep it tight, keep it sounding the way that they're used to having it delivered. Don't change the key. Don't mess around with it. Just give them what they want, give them what it is on the record as best you can, and then involve them in it. So we do have a little bit of a sing along as well, but it gives me a sense of responsibility and fortune. That's it.
You mentioned the Long Island thing. What was the scene like when you guys were coming up? You always hear about Long Island hardcore and punk. Mm-hmm. And
interesting question. So that kind of came a little bit after us. And so when we started, we did it in Manhattan. I moved to New York City when I was 22 years old, and sort of did our thing in the New York clubs, which was a bit more cynical. There wasn't really a scene there necessarily at the time. It was, like very competitive. So you had to be really careful. In New York, you only get one chance to build your crowd. You burn them out. That's it. Doesn't matter how good you are, So we had to be cautious about it. And unfortunately, we missed our own local scene by a few years. And it's something I kind of regret sometimes. Maybe I was born too early or something. Because I would have enjoyed that Taking Back Sunday scene, yeah. Glassjaw, and all those bands. So yeah, I mean, it's just something we unfortunately missed.
Do you have favorite Long Island artists? Like if you had a Mount Rushmore of Long Island, what would that look like?
Probably Public Enemy. I
Oh,
think,
yeah, shoot, I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, I think we're talking about one of the most important cultural phenomenon of all time. Forget it goes transcends music, and I think it's got to be. You got to call it Public Enemy. I don't see how you could say otherwise.
Hey, we're talking about Teenage Dirtbag and 105. I want to give credit where credit's due. 105.7 The Point, our alternative station in St. Louis, spun that thing all the time. How important do you think that was for, you being an East Coast band and just, us being in the Midwest in general? We get a little bit of East Coast, we get a little bit of West Coast, and a little bit of Chicago. But how important was that radio station for your success in the smaller markets in the Midwest, would you say?
I'd say that it's the single reason we're still able to go there, just me with an acoustic guitar and play a show and have people pay for it. That's it's foundational, it's everything. I mean, record companies, the video, pushing it and marketing it and all that stuff and posters and all that stuff. Yeah. But when people are driving to work and they can hear it for free on the radio, that puts it in their world, in their nervous system in a way that only radio can do. So I think that's foundational for us. It's true in San Diego, it's true in Portland, it's true in Boston, it's true in Philadelphia. These pockets where some DJ was like, you know what, I'm gonna play this 35 times a week, and that was really one of the reasons that we still survive, actually. Yeah.
What do you think it is about that song that resonated with so many people?
Well, it's a nice little daydream, it's a happy ending. And I think my dad said one time, he said, well, you know what it is everybody has to feel lonely. Now, while that can be in different degrees, I think some people for whom it will be debilitating and, life altering, and other people it will be just a phase. So I don't want to, speak glibly on it, but I think that's to some degree he got something right there, that like everybody has that moment where they feel unseen, and that they're outside of watching life from the outside, and I think that might be it. That's one of the connections.
Is some of it, do you think, I'm a therapist, so don't let me get too psychoanalytical here, but is some of that sort of identity, like I was the kid with, maybe it wasn't Iron Maiden, but definitely the Metallica and the Pantera shirts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at times, in certain circles, I might have felt like an outcast in a way. And part of like the ownership of that is, I'm a teenage dirtbag. Do you think part of that's in there too?
Definitely. I mean, that was, I was faced with that choice. There was this murder in my town. It was ground zero for Satanic Panic, 1984. And I was walking around with a tape case full of AC/DC, and these guys got arrested wearing an AC/DC shirt, So it's like local media were all over it, and it became this thing where it's like, oh, you know what a dirtbag is, do you? That's like a Satan worshiper, like bad, homicidal lunatic. And I felt like, well, hang on a minute, this is I just love AC/DC, I'm just learning how to play guitar here. I can't give this up. I'm not giving up because it's got me in trouble with, priests and police and parents. And, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to put on a polo shirt just because this has this stigma. And it was a little too early for me. I was 10 years old, like it was 1984. It was like they're just finding my music, just deciding what kind of a person I was going to be into my adulthood, what kind of tastes I was going to stick to. And, you discovering yourself, your identity discovery phase. So I hope that that's an easier discovery process for young people these days. But my experience of it was pretty scary and weird and loaded up with adult hypocrisy and lots of bad ideas. And, having to resist all that, stick to your guns and stay who you are. Because it was eclectic too. I wasn't just listening to AC/DC. I was listening to Prince, so it was this kind of like like moment of like, no, I think you guys are wrong. I'm just going to stick to this, and that costing you quite a bit, that getting you into some trouble. So, as an identity song, I think that if Dirtbag is something that people can carry into the positive space of finding themselves amongst the sort of like noise of everybody else trying to tell you who you are, that's that. I hope that keeps going forever. That would be great.
When you start the song live and you see that crowd reaction, what's that feeling like for you?
It's you just feel like the Beatles for a moment or something, It's like it's like, wait a minute, are you sure you don't, we fooled them? How do we fool them? It's a moment of connection, of profound connection, and then you realize that the song's not really yours anymore, that it belongs to them. That's the exchange. What you got in return for that love is they had to give the song over, and that they have to have it their way, So many times, as loud as the PA can get, I can't hear myself singing it. I mean, it's just and I'm happy to have that be the way, because that's them owning it themselves. It's them making it a part of their world and their lives, and amongst all the nonsense they have to deal with, their job, their family, their car payments or whatever else, they found time to make my stupid little 4-minute idea part of their lives. And I'm just like, my job is to deliver it as good as I can.
When you come out of the gate as hot as you guys did, and you have such a successful song like that, does pressure come along with that to follow it up with something on the same scale? Or are you just concentrating on the writing, concentrating on the creative process, and doing you?
Yeah, it would have been real awkward to try and write a follow-up to that song. I think it would have fallen flat on its face. So we have
adulthood Dirtbag.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know. That always felt wrong, and I never even tried. There's a different side to it. You're constantly trying to write a song that interests you as much as that one did at one time, and I have done that personally. A song called Lemonade, another one from our third record called The London Sun, and a song called Valentine, most recently on the Valentine LP. These are songs that I feel in my heart the way I feel about Dirtbag. I was talking to somebody, my dad, another one of his quips. He said, yeah, you guys are one-hit wonder status, but it's more like nobody's gotten over your first song yet. And I was like, well, that's funny. That's an interesting way to put it. And I'm fine with that too, if that's what we're dealing with. I don't need to have like another, Mike Tyson type song where it's like this one-off kind of, there's never going to be another fighter like Mike Tyson, right? So it's just like, I know that there's never going to be another song like that. I can write something else. I can do other fun things. But I just don't feel compelled to try and like top it or match it or anything. I think it would discredit the song a little bit if I kept shooting at the same target,
You don't see them as much anymore, but I always think about VH1. They would run the top one-hit wonders of the 90s or something, And I always got a kick when people would put Blind Melon on that list. Blind Melon, one of my favorite bands. And, No Rain was so popular, but that's not even their best album, in my opinion.
They never heard Tones of Home. Yeah, I mean, but you have to understand that, like, the way that mass media marketing works is it's all the moonshot, right? Everybody they want to get behind the moonshot, and then if they get you that moonshot, they feel like, okay, well, you're on your own. Go ahead, do your career now. And there's not a lot of attention or financing for developing bands. So you're right. You're going to have songs that are amazing that people don't know about. And one of my favorite records by the Black Crowes is a record they did called Lions, which came around the same time that we came out with Dirtbag. And a lot of people don't know that record. And, for me, that's it. That's the top of the Black Crowes for me. I can't not listen to that whole thing. It's a masterpiece. But, people want to go back to, their earlier hits and stick with that. And it's fair play, because people have, like I said, people have a lot to worry about in life, right? And they got a Black Crowes song or a Wheatus song that they like. They stick it in their pocket and they rely on it when they need it, right? They turn to it when they need it. I don't feel at all disappointed that people aren't like heavily investigating our catalog. You know, I feel lucky to be a musician who plays music for people as my full-time job, and I feel like I won the lottery, you know? So I think people discover our records in their own time, and the first 100 people in who are up against the stage at the show, they know every word to every song, and that's our family. You know, we've known them for years, and they keep coming back, and we keep trying to give them something new. And you know, that's the real bonded relationship right there, and that's got nothing to do with Teenage Dirtbag. But as far as, you know, a band that can still tour the world and still go to Europe and still go to Australia and still, you know, fire off to the, you know, St. Louis or even the outskirts of St. Louis and have people show up, it's like, you know, that's a blessing and a real fortunate situation for us. So I just feel lucky about it, you know.
Talk about some of the familiar faces. Is it to the point now where they're bringing their kids to the shows, right? You might recognize somebody that's been coming to your shows for years.
100%.
Now they're 100%. Bringing their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. In the UK in particular, we got 3 generations over there at this point showing up. And, you know, many people who met at our shows and are still married and got married, you know, they met as teenagers. They met as like 13, 14-year-old kids at the shows back in the year 2000, 2001. And they're married and they have kids now. And they you know, and they'll do the funny thing where one of them shows up and be like, oh, you know, Ross is at home babysitting tonight. I got to come tonight, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's still a family event, you know, in the longest sense of the word family. It's a family event.
Looks like you're in your maybe home studio right now. Where are you at right now?
I'm in our studio in the Bronx, currently under a little bit of renovation. We're moving things around because we got so much touring to do. It's always 10 pounds of food in a 5-pound bag. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the we've always done records at home. We've never only one time did we ever go into a studio to cut a single, and it was Abbey Road. We went into room 2. Where they made Sgt. Pepper to cut our 3rd single from the first record. And we did it. Bruce Dickinson came down and sang on it, the singer from Iron Maiden. He came down and sang on that version. So, yeah. I feel like we shouldn't move into a studio after that. So you get that one experience. That was the only time we were ever in a real studio. The rest of it's all been home recording. So let's keep it home recording. We're not going to top that.
Do you bring a producer in? Do you produce everything yourself? Do you bring other engineers in?
Always self-produced. The band and I, we sometimes I get some help with engineering from them. Just, you know, running cables and making sure the microphones are in the right spot and all that kind of stuff. So we all, it's all hands on deck, sort of. You know, we all do the record. Yeah, it's been self-produced since the start. So we've never had a producer come in. Never.
I've talked about this in other interviews. My studio is in my backyard. My house is probably 50 yards away.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a blessing sometimes. And it can also be a curse because you get sort of that. Is that you doing? Somebody's thumbing up. Is that me? Okay. Sorry. Sometimes, you know, I have access to the studio at any time I want, but I can over produce things, right? Or I can over tweak things to the point where maybe I even lose some of the original thought behind the original idea. Do you guys ever experience that with your own production?
Yeah, I'm certain I've made those mistakes myself. Yeah, for sure. Overthinking it, overproducing it, overmixing it, getting your head about it. You can also, I've also gotten pretty lazy about it at times and unmotivated because you wake up every day and there's the studio staring at you and it's waiting for you to do something and you just like don't have any separation from it, you know, so it can become a little bit beat down. But then, you know, you spend a few weeks on the road and you start thinking about getting back in that studio. It's about the separation, you know, you get away from it for a while and you start thinking about what you can use that place to make, you know, see it as a laboratory again, you know. So yeah, it's like it's just like anything else. It's a human process, you know. I mean, I procrastinate or I overwork. You know, there are times when I'm waking up every morning at 6 a.m. and trying to get something right and just ferocious to the point of it being unhealthy, really sometimes. But that's just the way creativity works. You know, when the fire is lit, you gotta burn. You know, so yeah.
When art and creating is your job, how do you balance that? Sort of some of the stuff that we're talking about, maybe with your personal life or whatever else you might have going on. It's an interesting way to make a living, I would say. Tell us just a little bit about that. Creativity being a part of what you do.
Well, being an independent band, there's a lot of manual labor, right? Today, for example, I was carrying cases up and down the stairs, moving things around. We're getting ready to hit the road with Soup. So we got everybody who's in the crew is currently living here and air mattresses, and we're moving speakers around, and I'm running cables and getting the rehearsal ready. This afternoon, I got to plug in the old trailer and make sure I can do the crossload with the bus in a couple of weeks. You know, I mean, it's like you got a lot of, it's like living on a farm a little bit, right? But to get away from it, for me anyway, I spell that BMX. I get on my BMX bike and I ride around the city. I ride around New York and into the woods wherever there's a trail, and just kind of go and go and go until I'm completely spent, you know. And so BMXing is my getaway from the whole thing. Get into nature a little bit, you know.
Bowling for Soup with Wheatus at the pageant in St. Louis on September 6th. What can the fans expect, guys? Guy?
Well, so it's a Soup tour, right? Which means that it's more fun than you could imagine. It's more fun than you thought you could feel. And we're going to bring to that whatever they need to maintain that and be a part of that, to be another pillar on that fun ride, right? So our set's going to be quick, snappy, up-tempo, lots of songs. I'm going to try and show you parts of us you may never have seen before, or you couldn't have thought would exist in the Wheatus world. And then you'll get your big dirt bag, and then the boys, Jarrett and the boys, will come out and I think that they're playing the whole damn record. I think they're playing all of A Hangover You Don't Deserve or something like that. So yeah, at least I hope they are, because you know, for me, the song on that record is Ohio. I just want to be out front rocking to that every night. That song kills me. But yeah, man, it's going to be a celebration. 20 years for them. We're coming up on 25 ourselves. So you know, just make it as fun and worthwhile as we can possibly make it.
What's the rest of the year look like for you?
We got a few festivals. We might be headed back to England in December. We have to remaster our third record because the 25th anniversary, the 20th anniversary for that record is next year, as well as the 25th anniversary for our first record. So we got a double anniversary coming up, 2025. We got a lot of prep to do because we're trying to get to a point where for our headline shows, there's no Wheatus song we don't know. Where I think we got like 80 something tracks streaming on streaming platforms right now. And our goal is to know how to drop every last one of them should anybody ask. So a full package request set we're prepping for 2025. I think I'm also going back to Australia in January. And we have the Bowling for Soup Hangover You Don't Deserve UK tour leg that we're doing with them in February. And that's arenas. So that's going to be this whole other world of like fun and giganticness. I'm just happy to be on the Soup train. They're a lot of fun. And they work their asses off, those guys. So it's fun.
One more, we'll let you get out of here. Is there a certain type of venue, you're talking about playing arenas when you go over there next year? Is there a certain type of venue that you prefer?
I'm partial to a good sounding small rock club because that's where we got started here in New York City at the Mercury Lounge. My formative memories of really getting it right on stage are all in small New York rock clubs that kind of that smell like a New York basement, you know? And that's my favorite. That's my native environment, my native habitat. But I take them as they come, and it's a different show no matter where you are. You know, you got to fill the room, or tamp it down a bit. So we've done arena tours before. They're over before you know it, because the sensory overload is just like, whoa, you feel like you're going to the moon or something, you know. And we've done lots of small club touring and intimate acoustic shows. So that middle ground, as I was describing, is my favorite. But I find something enjoyable about all of it, because you're just so lucky to be doing it at all, you know.
Talk about the New York scene. Did you guys ever play CBGBs? Did you ever get the chance to do that?
Yeah. The only time Wheatus ever played CBGBs was opening up for Joey Ramone. Well, he was doing this. He did a show with Ronnie Spector there in 2002, or rather, it was August of 2000. We opened up for Joey Ramone there. It was our record release party, and he was putting out something too, and he invited us. And it was like, it's not going to get any better than this. Like, this is one of those, like, you got to be kidding me. And he died about a year later, sadly. Yeah, man, that was one of those, like, I still have some of the newspaper clippings from that, and it's crazy that happened. It was nuts.
For some reason, it reminded me of this. I guess maybe talking about the Ramones and New York scene. Did you guys ever appear on the Howard Stern show at all?
No, we never did. Funny story. Jackie Martling went on a date with my mom when they were teenagers.
Oh, wow.
And still knows. We still know him, and I reconnected with him recently, and because my father died, and they were friends. But Jackie's an old family friend from Long Island. It's kind of part of the scene. But no, Wheatus has never been on the Howard Stern show. Just friends of Jackie's. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we're excited. Bowling for Soup with Wheatus on September 6th at the Pageant in St. Louis. This is the Midwest Mixtape Podcast. We really appreciate your time today, man.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. This was a fun chat.